Dada! So welcome back. In this episode of African Spirituality, we're going to be talking about fetishes, African fetishes. So actually, it is not like fetishes in terms of people being inclined to worship other people's feet and things like that. No, no, no. It has nothing to do with that. If you are versed in magic or spirituality and the occult, fetishes here we're talking about a form of thought form and a form of servitor, except that from the angle of African spirituality, it is not all about the astral and the unseen. That's the caveat. So basically, what are fetishes? Fetishes are spirits, or essentially are spirits or objects with specific energies that are there for a specific purpose. One of the purpose is protection. And so how it was used, and this I know from personal experience because my grandfather used to use that. Basically, he will have a fetish on his field, so that when he's working in the field and planting his crops, and the harvest comes, he is not worried about anybody coming to steal his harvest or stealing his crops. And by anybody, I'm talking about individuals. So he will have his fetishes on different part of his properties, and their purpose is to guard the properties, not to prevent people from stealing. But if anyone does steal, that person will come back and return what has been stolen on their own, without my grandfather having to identify them or to go look for them or to do anything else for them to come back. The fetish, this is what the fetish is for. The fetish is the one who's going to be nagging this person, basically cursing that person with all kinds of negative experiences until that person return what he or her has stolen from the property. And this is something that my grandfather was using and had, for years and years and years, and he had never any issues. He had plantation of coffee, he had pineapple plantation, and he grew a lot of different things. Now, the beauty of that is that because the fetish only can curse and do all the different negative things to people who are strangers to the family. Basically, the way my grandfather set that up is that for his children, his grandchildren, and what have you, is not going to be impacting us. That means the fetish is not going to come after us because we share the same DNA, we sharing the same bloodline. Then that's one example. Obviously, of course, you can program the fetish to do all kind of other things, to select all kind of different people. He could eventually go after some people of your own family if you'd like to, because his main purpose is that it has to be based. I think this is what may be different from the Western point of view in terms of the servitor and the servitor and the thought forms. So when we're talking about servitors or thought forms, you're talking about you creating in your mind. It could be an individual, it could even be a fetish in the same sense, but you're creating this servitor, this entity, and you're giving it a purpose. And the way this entity kind of becomes alive is because you're feeding it your own energy, you're feeding it other form of energy, whether it's incense, candles, and all other things. You're doing rituals basically to feed that entity so that they gain in power and so they are able to do what you want them to do. And in terms of servitors, a thought form can be negative thought form. You can create a monster up there if you would like. The same for servitors. You could create a servitor that's very deviant, that's going to do a kind of different, harm other people and what have you. Because in that kind of system, it is not restricted. From the teaching of my grandfather, it is clear that the servitor, not the servitor, but the fetish, which is a form, I think it would be classified in the same category as the thought form or the servitor, except that the fetish is material. You can see it will embody a physical form in a specific object, which is usually a statue that's either hidden somewhere on the property or that's even put on the forefront so that people know this property is protected by this particular fetish. So that's when people like to give a warning saying, hey, don't come here doing certain things because you're gonna reap the consequences of them. Other people will hide the fetishes so that if you come in there, it's at your own risk and peril. If you already knew you were already intending to do something bad, you're just going to be basically reaping what you saw. And so the difference is that in this particular system of fetishes, the fetish is only based in something that's true. this is why you say, okay, I want you to do all these negative things. If somebody breaks this rule, if somebody harm me, if somebody harm my property, if somebody harms the space and the environment that I am supposed to be taking care of, therefore you are triggered. You will have now the okay to go on, to go after this person. And in the terms of balance and ma'at, it actually comes into play. And this is why these fetishes are so efficient and so efficacious, because they're working with universal laws. You're breaking some laws, you're breaking some, you're infringing on other people's rights, then you will have to respond. Just like the scales, it has to be balanced, and the only difference is that unfortunately, if you do not correct it as soon as you can, or as soon as you realize that this thing is coming after you, the more you wait and the more you'll undergo a lot of negativity. And I think it is just a great tool. You wouldn't need an alarm for your house or your home or anything like that, so people wouldn't be that much concerned. If you go from to the city, let's say if you go to Douala or Yaoundé in Cameroon, you'll see that people have, gatekeepers, they have gate around their house, they have all these different things, which is much more westernized. As you go to the village, whether people have, really valuable properties, valuable item into their home, most of them are not going to guard it that way. Some people will have nowadays a lot of much larger home, more of the Western style, even in the village now, as people are getting more affluent and have more money, or living abroad and coming to build houses that kind of look like what they have in different countries. They are still not going to that extent, because if they're using fetishes, simply because the fetish is going to do much is going to do a much greater, better work than an alarm that you would put in your home, because the fetish is actually going to follow that person and see that person actually restores what has been stolen from you. And then this is not some kind of woohoo explanation. This, I've seen it for myself work, and it is based on universal laws. The law of restitution, the law of rhythm, some of based also in the principle of Mahat. So if you look in terms of the principle, is really well sound in terms of what it means. So if you trespassing, you're doing the different negative things, then you will just get back exactly what you aimed. Now we can get into more complicated things, like if you're retrieving something that was stolen from you, all different things, those are different patterns. But the fetish itself works on a level that has to be vibrationally sound, okay? And this is why a lot of people also sometimes get themselves messed up, because if you've stolen this land from somebody else and you're asking the fetish to protect the land and to protect the owners, therefore the fetish is going to come after you. And this is a common mistake of people who inherited land that was stolen from somebody else. So it doesn't matter that it was your grandfather who did that, or that you're not aware of it. A series of events is going to come after you, and when you have to go to someone to divine that, the person will tell you that your grandfather stole this land. So just imagine if they were applying that in other places, like in North America or in Australia or even different places all over the place. I think there will be a lot of havoc. People will realize that even though you may not be the perpetrator yourself, if your grandpa or your grandparents, your great-grandparents, no matter how far it has been, gave you this land that they obtained in a fraudulent, in a negative, by stealing it or other negative means, you may be nevertheless hold responsible, because you are enjoying the benefits, reaping the benefits of it. So the way to escape that is to correct the wrongs that have been done. And there's no way escaping the havoc that may come from you, because it is in your DNA. Your grandfather transmuted that information to you through your blood, and hence for all the different things on bloodline and so forth. You can watch that series of videos if you're interested into that. But Fetishes are a nice tool for in African spirituality, a nice tool of protection. You can also use fetishes, to guard. You can use them to guard physical properties as your crops and what have you, but you also can use them to guard you spiritually and to have a fetish that's protecting your home, a fetish that you are feeding and that is working specifically to prevent people with negative energy to enter your home. And oftentimes it will be that people will get sick. Some event will happen for these people not to come into your home. There are different series and forms that this will manifest. And usually, as it is, the same with magic, occultism, metaphysics, and all different things, when the fetish is operating, it is not going to be, something that's going to be really blatantly, magical like that. It's going to be something that's going to be very logical, really insidious. The person, except for the person who comes back and actually admit to having stolen from you, have done all those different negative things. The rest of the thing is mostly something that's going to be very subtle. You had to meet with somebody and the person will call into counsel, or the person is coming towards your home and feeling the energy that they cannot go there. They will have somebody else calling them. So they make some type of logic into that, but it is still the fetish functioning on that level. So fetishes can be used to a whole array of purposes, but those are the main two. One, that people use them to protect their own property, and two, they use them to protect themselves spiritually. You can see them in different forms, statues. There's no particular size, shape, face, or figure of different statues, but it is known that from different tribes, different ethnic groups, the statues may look differently. They may be incorporating things from their local environment as well into the statue. Some people will have the fetishes, give something to the fetishes to represent some of the offerings that they may give. The fetish may be, the home fetish can be set anywhere else. It could be in front of the property, in the back of the property, inside the home. It can be hidden anywhere, depending on the taste of the person and what they feel like doing with it. So I just wanted to take a bit nap. So that's an addition that people use in order to protect their home. And sometimes it's not just the home, it could be a fetish that will protect the entire village. I think there are a series of untold African stories about how villages were protected during the colonization. And for my own belief, I believe that there are lots of villages that had never been influenced by colonization or even touched by colonization, because foreigners were just not able to get into the village and even to get into contact with these individuals. So those are a lot of different little stories that I think at some point I will start sharing, because I'm kind of sometimes really tired of the narrative that all of the African people were colonized and have their turn away from the spirituality, while the many stories of the few towns, villages, and areas that were well protected by the spirituality and that ancient knowledge are often not really talked about or even ignored. And I think that would be a great thing to shed light into. And of course, if some of you are interested, I will be delighted to do that in an upcoming series, probably this summer or something like that. So that was a quick video on fetishes. If you'd like to learn more, I invite you to do so. And before I go, just to underline the differences between when you're going to hear about servitors and hear about thought forms, you have to realize that the thought forms are pure energy, similar to the servitors. They are pure energy. They are created in the astral realm or the spiritual realm. But the difference with the fetish is that this fetish has a material, physical presence. I mean, stories of people seeing this fetish move or disappearing and coming back to its place. It's much more, to me, it's much more powerful than the servitor, which is basically acting solely on the energetical level, even though all the things are energetical. It's just that the fetish can act in different layers of energy. It can act in the most dense, in the physical, by you seeing the fetish wherever you're going and having him follow you around literally and make your life hell until you correct the wrong that you've done, or seeing the fetish in your dreams, seeing the fetish around you as hallucination, if you like. It's not there physically, but you keep seeing it. Having the fetish be in your thoughts, creating situation where to bring you to correct the wrong that you've done. So there's many different ways to do that, and there's many different ways that the fetish is actually intervening in the individual that he's supposed to be taking care of, which you don't see in the terms of servitors or in the line of work of servitors and it's escaping me right now. But it's just to say that the Western occult systems, there are some similarities, as you can see. The principle underneath it is kind of the same, but from that Western occult system, you don't really have the material side of them. And you know, it is something very different from enchanting statues and things like that, and then having statues do certain things, because again, because of the underlying purpose of the fetish. And also because most of the time the fetish is made of the material that comes from the exact environment where it's going to be having these powers and interacting, which is not necessarily the case when you're talking about servitors or thought forms. The thought form can be done anywhere, you know, you don't have to be basically in sync with nature or anything like that, which the fetish is pretty much, it is, I think, an expression also of a symbiotic relationship between the environment and individuals. As you merge energies, you merge also purposes, especially when you want to protect a property that you are taking care of. That means that environment is actually receiving from you, and it is in the best interest of this environment to actually protect you and ensure that you remain the custodian of that space. So there are different layers and different justification of why a system like fetishes could be employed, especially as much as you start having interactions between people who are from different cultures coming into the environment and not necessarily respecting the environment as it should be respected. Some people have said also that sacred woods, sacred areas are protected by fetishes, but that could be true in a way, but in a lot of time they are just protected by the spirits that are there, and this is why also traditionally we'll say that there are spaces that are sacred, there are spaces that you cannot build a house there, no matter how much the landscape looks and how much money you may have. No man will be able to build a house there. And there are spaces that are dedicated like that. There are spaces where the sacredness of the biodiversity, of the environment itself, of the spirits that are living there, whether they are fairies, animal spirits, plant spirits, mineral kingdom spirits, or other beings or portals that also may be there. There are forces that are going to come together and unify to prevent you from doing anything or altering that environment. And to my perspective, that has little to do with fetishes. Fetishes are really much made with human energy implanted into that. Now there are other people, individuals that work with other forest and environment, the spirits in the environment, in order to protect their properties as well. But that should be the topic of a different video. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in my next. Bye.